The desert arena stretched wide under the burning twin suns, its sand glowing like fire, and around the circle stood thousands of alien spectators, their strange eyes shining with excitement, for today was a day of mockery and entertainment. At the center stood a human soldier, dressed in black armor, his jaw strong and his eyes calm. He looked out of place in this world of tall towers and curved alien designs. But he did not lower his gaze, he did not bow. Instead, he stood still, waiting. Across from him stood a young alien warrior, tall and beautiful, her crimson hair flowing like flames in the hot wind, her golden eyes fixed on him with arrogance. She wore a sleek suit of alien combat armor that glimmered with strange symbols. She had been chosen to test the human, and she enjoyed every moment of this. She circled him slowly, her steps graceful, her lips curled into a mocking smile. She raised one long finger and poked his armored chest. The crowd laughed, their voices echoing like thunder. She tilted her head and spoke loudly. "So this is the human? The fragile creature who dares to stand among warriors?" The human said nothing. His silence was steady, his eyes sharp. He watched her every move. Again, she poked him, harder this time, her nail tapping against the metal of his chest plate. "Weak," she said, her voice dripping with pride. "Small, soft, unworthy of battle." The crowd roared with laughter, pointing at the human as if he were a fool standing in the wrong place. But the human did not flinch. His hands relaxed at his sides, his breathing slow. He looked like a stone. Standing against the storm, the alien girl narrowed her eyes, annoyed by his calmness. She wanted him to break, she wanted him to react, because in her culture, a warrior who showed no spirit was less than nothing. She leaned closer, her face inches from his, and whispered so that only he could hear. "You are prey, human, and I am the hunter." Her breath was hot, her smile cruel. The human's jaw tightened slightly, but still, he did not answer. The crowd began chanting, calling for the alien warrior to humiliate him further. Some shouted for her to slap him, others for her to strike him down quickly. But she wanted to savor this, to break him slowly. She raised her hand and poked him again, this time against his jaw, her golden eyes flashing with triumph. "Do you hear them?" She shouted so all could hear. "They laugh because you are nothing, a pet pretending to be a soldier." The arena filled with the sound of alien laughter, cruel and sharp. The desert winds carried the sound far, as if the whole planet mocked. The human, yet still, he did not speak, he did not move. And that silence became heavier than any words. The alien girl felt a flicker of unease in her chest, but she forced it away with anger. She slapped her palm against his shoulder, shoving him back a step. "React, human. Show me something. Or admit you are less than dust," she demanded. The human's eyes finally shifted, meeting hers with a gaze so steady, so cold, that her mocking smile faltered. For the first time, the crowd grew quiet, sensing a change in the air. The heat of the sun seemed to fade, replaced by a sharp tension that made every breath feel heavy. The alien warrior swallowed, her arrogance fighting against a sudden whisper of doubt. She stepped closer, her finger once again reaching for his chest, ready to poke, ready to show all that. She was still in control. But just as her finger touched him, the human moved, his hands snapping up with lightning speed, his grip closing around her wrist like iron. The crowd gasped as she froze, her eyes widening. He leaned forward slowly, never breaking eye contact. And in a voice low and steady, he finally spoke. "Enough." The word was simple, but it carried the weight of a storm. The alien girl's heart skipped as his grip tightened slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to show that he was no toy. "No prey," the crowd murmured, confusion and fear spreading like fire. They had come to laugh, but now silence ruled the arena. The alien girl tried to pull her hand back, but his strength surprised her. His calmness shook her, and for the first time, she felt her arrogance slip. The human's eyes narrowed, and though his lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile, it was not a friendly one. It was the smile of someone who had been pushed too far, someone who would no longer play along. The desert winds rose, carrying sand across the arena floor. The suns burned above, and in that moment, everyone knew the story was about to change. The arrogant alien had poked the human too many times, and now he was ready to answer. The alien warrior froze as the human's grip locked around her wrist, her golden eyes widening with disbelief. No one had ever dared touch her like this, not in front of her people, not in the sacred arena. The crowd gasped, their voices rising. In shock and anger, some shouted for her to break free. Others demanded the human be punished. But for the first time, the arena's laughter had died. Replaced by uneasy silence, the human soldier's gaze stayed fixed on her, cold and unshaken, his jaw clenched with patience that had finally run thin. For too long she had mocked, too long she had poked and laughed. Now the balance had shifted. The alien warrior snarled, her pride burning. She pulled against his grip, but his strength surprised her. He was not supposed to be this strong. Humans were supposed to be fragile, weaker than the warriors of her race, yet his fingers pressed into her skin like steel. "Release me, human," she hissed, her voice sharp and full of venom, "or you will regret it." For the first time, the human spoke more than one word. His voice steady, low, but full of dangerous calm. "You keep poking, you think I am weak. Maybe it is time you learn." Before she could react, before the crowd could understand, the human yanked her hand closer, and in one sudden motion, he bit down on her knuckles. The alien girl screamed, not from pain alone, but from shock, her eyes wide as the sting shot through her hand. She stumbled back, clutching her wrist, staring at him with disbelief. The entire arena fell silent. Every alien watching with open mouths, their minds struggling to process what they had just seen. No warrior had ever been bitten like prey. No one had ever been humbled in such a raw and animal way. The human lifted his head slowly, his lips tight, his eyes locked on hers with unbroken defiance. "Do not mistake my silence for weakness," he said firmly, his voice echoing across the arena. Gasps spread through the alien crowd, their whispers rising like a storm. Some shouted in anger, others in awe, some even laughed nervously, but not at him. No, this time they laughed at her, their proud champion who had been bitten by a human. The alien warrior's face burned with humiliation, her golden eyes glowing brighter with fury. She pointed at him with a trembling finger. "You dare, you filthy creature. You dare mark me." Her voice cracked, not with fear, but with wounded pride. The human stood tall, unmoved. "You wanted a reaction," he said calmly. "Now you have it." The crowd stirred, the atmosphere changing from entertainment to tension. Guards on the edges of the arena shifted uneasily, unsure whether to intervene or let the duel unfold. The alien girl clenched her teeth, her breath sharp. She could still feel the sting of his bite, not deep enough to wound her, but deep enough to brand her ego forever. She was a warrior of status, admired and feared, and yet this human had turned her into the joke. She rushed forward in rage, her fist flying at his face. But he sidestepped swiftly, her strike hitting empty air. She spun with speed, her combat training clear. But the human moved differently, his footwork steady, his body controlled. He was not mocking. He was not showing off. Every motion he made was sharp and practical, and that frightened her more than his bite. "You think you humiliated me," she growled, circling him like a predator. "But I will crush you. I will tear you apart before their eyes." The human didn't flinch. He raised his chin slightly, his calmness a blade sharper than any weapon. "You can try," he answered. Crowd roared again, half cheering for her revenge, half whispering about his fearlessness. The atmosphere boiled with conflict, the outcome no longer clear. The alien warrior lunged again, this time with her full strength, her claws flashing, her hair flying like fire. The human met her strike with his forearm. The impact loud, his armor scraping but holding. He shoved her back with raw force. And again the crowd gasped. She stumbled a step, her pride cracking further. She had expected him to break, but he was unyielding. Her golden eyes narrowed, fury. Mixing with something else she didn't want to admit, respect, the human took one slow step forward. His presence filling the space. He didn't roar, he didn't posture. He simply stood with strength that could not be denied. You wanted dominance, he said coldly. But today, it is mine. The alien warrior's heart raced, her breathing heavy. The bite on her hand still tingling. It was not just pain, it was a reminder. A mark of defiance that no one in the arena could ignore. Around them, the crowd grew restless, torn between their champion and this strange human. Their voices clashing, some shouting for her to destroy him, others murmuring that perhaps the human was more than prey. The suns blazed above, shadows stretching across the arena floor, the air thick with dust and heat. The alien warrior raised her weapon now. No longer mocking, no longer playful. Her pride demanded victory, her honor demanded it. Yet in her chest, the seed of doubt had already taken root. And in the center, the human stood tall, his eyes calm, his will unbroken, his bite still fresh. In her memory, this was no longer a game, no longer mockery. It had become a battle of pride, of dominance, of two worlds clashing in a single arena, and everyone watching knew the human had already changed the story. Asterisk. The arena floor was silent, except for the sound of heavy breathing. The alien warrior's chest rose and fell as she held her weapon tightly, her golden eyes burning with fury. Yet deep inside, something else stirred, doubt. The human stood across from her, calm and steady, his black armor scratched but unbroken. His hands relaxed at his sides. He did not move like prey. He did not cower or flinch. Instead, he watched her with the eyes of someone who had already made his choice. The crowd above grew restless, their whispers clashing like waves. Some shouted for the alien warrior to destroy him, to prove once and for all that humans were weak. Others spoke softly, their voices uneasy, for they had seen something in the human that unsettled them. The alien warrior clenched her jaw, her pride wounded by his bite, her heart burning with anger. But every time her eyes met his, the memory of his defiance returned. She remembered the feel of his teeth on her skin, the way he had held her wrist, the power in his silence. She raised her weapon higher, forcing herself to speak with confidence. You think one act of defiance makes you strong, human? You are nothing against me, against us, her words echoed. But her voice carried a sharp edge of desperation. The human tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable, and then he spoke, his words calm and sharp like a blade. You mock, you shout, you hide behind pride. But deep down, you fear me. The alien warrior stiffened, her grip tightening on her weapon. I fear no human, she spat. But her voice trembled for the first time. The crowd gasped at his boldness, their eyes fixed on the two figures standing in the circle of dust and light. Slowly, the human began to walk forward, each step measured, his boots pressing into the sand with a quiet strength. The alien warrior instinctively stepped back once, her pride screaming at her for the mistake. The whispers in the arena grew louder, aliens pointing, some laughing not at the human, but at her hesitation. Her face burned with rage. She roared and lunged at him, her weapon slashing through the air. The human moved with precision, dodging to the side, his arms snapping up to shove her strike away. The clash rang out loud, sparks flying. The alien warrior spun quickly, attacking again, her movements fast and practiced. But the human countered each strike, his motions simple but effective. He did not waste energy. He did not fall into her rhythm. Every time she attacked, she expected him to break, to stumble, to finally show weakness. But he did not. The crowd erupted in mixed shouts, the noise overwhelming. Some cheered her strength. Others murmured that the human was different, that he fought like no other prey they had seen. Sweat formed on her brow, her breathing heavier. Now the heat of the twin suns pressing down. Her pride demanded she end this quickly. but her strikes grew more desperate. Her movements sharper, yet less controlled. The human stepped back once, letting her swing her weapon wide, and then in one sudden motion, he caught her arm, twisting it just enough to force her down to one knee. The crowd gasped in shock, her golden eyes wide as she stared up at him, her chest heaving, her pride shattered a little more. The human leaned down slightly, his voice low, only for her. "This is not your stage anymore, it is mine." She growled and pushed back with all her strength. Breaking free, scrambling to her feet, she spun with rage, her face glowing with humiliation. "You dare humiliate me before my people? I will kill you." The crowd roared at her words, their cheers like thunder. But even among them, some voices carried doubt, whispers spreading like fire. "The human. He is not weak." Her hands trembled as she raised her weapon again, not from fear, but from a strange mixture of emotions she could not understand: anger, shame, and something else: respect. The human raised his fists, his body calm, his eyes locked on hers. He did not look like prey. He looked like a predator, and the crowd felt it too. The tension thickened, the air heavy, each heartbeat echoing louder in the silence between their movements. The alien warrior roared again and charged, their weapons clashing, sparks scattering across the sand, the sound sharp and echoing. The duel was no longer mockery. It had become a storm of pride and defiance. Every strike shook the arena. Every movement held the attention of thousands, but with every passing second, the alien warrior felt her arrogance slipping further, and the human's presence growing stronger. Finally, she stumbled back, panting, her weapon lowered slightly, sweat running down her face. The crowd murmured in shock, their eyes wide. The human did not even look tired, his breathing steady, his stance strong. He pointed at her calmly. "This is your lesson. You wanted to see weakness, but today you see strength." Her heart pounded. Her pride shattered in pieces. She hated him for it, yet she could not deny what her eyes had seen. The arena was filled with silence again. The tension so sharp, it felt like it could cut through stone. Everyone knew this was no ordinary fight. This was a battle that would be remembered, not for victory or defeat alone, but for the way one human had forced an arrogant alien to doubt everything she believed. The duel was far from over, but already the world had changed.